Calendars are the silent architects of our lives, the messengers of a seemingly flawless cosmic cycle. Yet, every few years, a day slips into our reality that does not fit the rhythm of the universe. February 29th for most. This is merely a minor astronomical correction. However, if you look into the blood-stained pages of the past, you will realize that this leap day is actually a crack in the fabric of time. It is a haunting void where logic falls. Silent and supernatural fears manifest into reality. Today, we journey into two dark stories that seep through that temporal crack. One, a town destroyed in the brutal cold. The other, the spark of a madness that would stain history for centuries. We are unearthing the forgotten cases of February 29th. The year is 1704. The isolated town of Deerfield, Massachusetts, was struggling through a merciless New England winter. The settlers had tightly shuttered their windows, seeking refuge from the biting frost. They believed the massive wooden palisades and knee-deep snow would act as an impassable barrier. But there was a fatal detail. On this night, the snow was not a protector, but a silent path for killers. On the eerie night of February 29th, hundreds of shadows glided from the frozen forest. French soldiers and their native allies realized that the massive snowdrifts had piled up against the town's walls like a natural ramp. While the townspeople slept, the enemies walked over the defenses. The walls of Deerfield were breached in the darkest hours when the first torch touched a roof at dawn. February 29th woke up to a nightmare. Doors were smashed with axes, and screams froze in the icy air. More than 50 people were slaughtered in their beds. For the survivors, a worse fate waited. 100 captives, many in nightclothes, were forced into a 3-mile death march toward the frozen wilderness of Canada. February 29th was the day their civilization collapsed. 12 years earlier, another disaster began on a February 29th morning in Salem. The infamous witch hunts became official on this leap day. It began with young girls suffering from seizures and claiming to see invisible entities. On February 29, 1692, the first arrest warrants were signed. 3 women were targeted: Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba. They were the most vulnerable, chosen as scapegoats for a day that shouldn't exist. When brought before the judges on February 29th, Tituba, under immense pressure, gave the testimony that would doom the town. "I made a covenant with the devil," with that sentence. Reason ended and collective madness began. That extra day became the first stone on the path to the gallows for the innocent. Blood in the snow of Deerfield and screams from Salem. Both tragedies unite under the uncanny shadow of February 29th. It is as if this rare day acts as a door, left ajar for humanity's darkest impulses. History may not repeat, but a one-day error in our calendar can open wounds that never heal. The sun rose on February 29th, but for the survivors of Deerfield, the light brought no warmth. The massacre was over, but a new nightmare had just begun. As the town burned behind them, over 100 men, women, and children were herded like cattle into the frozen depths of the wilderness. This was the start of a 300-mile forced march toward Canada, a journey through a white hell where the leap day claimed its second toll. The weak among the captives was the town's minister, John Williams. He watched in horror as those who stumbled in the waist-deep snow were met with the sharp edge of a tomahawk. There was no room for mercy on a day that did not exist. The forest was a labyrinth of ice, and every step was a battle against a silent, freezing death. Mothers carried infants until their limbs turned blue, knowing that to stop meant to die. This was not just a march. It was a systematic erasure of lives, a psychological descent into the unknown, fueled by the cold indifference of the northern winter. While blood stained the snow in the north, a different kind of frost was settling over Salem as the first leap day warrants were served. There in the meeting house grew thick with a suffocating tension. The 3 accused women stood before the magistrates, but they were not just facing men. They were facing a town that had lost its mind to fear. The girls who claimed to be bewitched began to scream in unison, their bodies twisting into unnatural shapes. They claimed to see blackbirds and yellow dogs whispering in the ears of the accused. On this February 29th, the boundary between the physical and the spectral world vanished. Tituba's confession was not an end, but a violent beginning. She spoke of a tall man from Boston, of red books signed in blood, and of secret meetings in the dark woods. The villagers listened, paralyzed by the realization that the devil was no longer at the gates, he was already inside. The extra day provided the perfect vacuum for this hysteria to solidify. By the time the sun set on this cursed date, the legal machinery for execution was fully in motion. Two tragedies, separated by hundreds of miles, were now bound by the same thread of 29th February darkness. One was a struggle for physical breath in the snow. The other was the slow strangulation of justice. The shadows were growing longer, and the crack in time was widening. February 29th, 1704. The time was 0 for 100. In the freezing darkness of Massachusetts, the residents of Deerfield were in their deepest sleep. But outside, 300 shadows glided silently across the snow. French and native warriors used the wind-drifted snowbanks as a ladder to scale the settlement's massive defensive walls. No alarms rang. No rifles fired. Not until the first axe blow shattered a door. When the sun rose, Deerfield was no longer a settlement. It was a massive graveyard. 50 of her people had been slaughtered in their beds, and the houses were set ablaze. Yet, the true tragedy was only beginning. 112 survivors were forced into a 480-kilometer death march toward Canada in the freezing cold. Those who grew weak, those who fell behind, or simply crying infants. They were all executed by the roadside. On that day, the snow was not just white, it was stained crimson. So, was this just a tragedy of war, or part of a cursed and beneath the date of February 29th? In 1692, the Salem Witch Trials were triggered on this exact date. In 1704, Deerfield was wiped off the map on this date. History loves coincidences written in blood. Exactly 256 years after the Deerfield Massacre, on another February 29th, a baby was born in Texas. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, who would become one of America's darkest nightmares, stepped onto the stage of history as the bloodiest representative of this haunted legacy. There are some dates that are remembered only by blood. On the next leap day, February 29th, make sure you lock your door twice, because history loves to repeat itself.